Okay. Well, I think I actually said I was going to make a 5-minute video yesterday, but I think I just forgot completely. I just didn't. Um, well, so now it's been, well, technically it's only been one day. It's like 1 day and a half. I didn't run yesterday. I didn't run the day before. And I mean, it honestly didn't even feel like I ran the day before just because it was so, it was so short. It's like 45, less than 45-minute run. I rode my bike yesterday. I didn't go on a hard ride. I was thinking about, I almost started on a real hard ride, and then I was like, maybe I'll back off real quick. And so, like, I guess I hate to, like, keep on this pacing thing, but I think that, like, the concept is just kind of misconstrued, that, like, it's just too much on the numbers and stuff. It's very scientific, but that's sort of the point. I'm trying to, like, science it, like, that it's not like about all that stuff. I'm actually kind of like euphoric, in a sort of euphoric state. I had a massage, and I went and did my legs, like my stability work, which I really can't do. See, the problem, this is going to be like a 10-minute video. So the difference between, like, doing core, like big muscle, and like stability is typically it's like you are exaggerating the movements that you're doing at extremely low rates, or extremely slow pace, like your reps, like you actually do them slower, and you do them to, like, the full extent, locking out just as much as, much range as motion as you can. And typically I don't even lift at all. Like, I haven't been when I get into my longer range. Like, I'll lift if I'm doing my normal, like, 5, 6, 7, anything basically up to like 10 miles now, I can still lift and feel okay for the run. But the difference between doing all the, like, support muscles, which you feel, it's a different feeling even during and after you are lifting, and is that you need those muscles even more so than your main muscles to not, like, get hurt, like, to stabilize your ankles and your knees and all those. And if you really, like, have fatigued those muscles, your chance for injury is, like, much higher. So if you're running every day, you're not able to rest, whereas if you're lifting and doing stabilization, like, I mean, you could be doing one or the other, where you're focusing on it. But even then, I've found myself hurting myself in the gym, just doing too much, not allowing my muscles to heal. Because, I mean, running is sort of like anaerobic, and this is like a steroidic. I'm just joking. No, but, like, running isn't, it's the same type of motion. You're not really getting out of form. You're sort of sticking to, like, a specific motion. Whereas when you're lifting and you're doing kind of support muscle groups, you're going kind of in abstract motions, and you're embellishing, like, typical movements, to where, like, you have to be careful because your muscles aren't designed to stretch forever or bend or mold forever. And so it feels amazing. I mean, it's a good type of workout, and I feel good doing it. But I am, like, sort of euphoric because, like I said, is that, like, I'm used to, like, getting up and, like, getting going and all these different things that, like, I'm just kind of, like, I'm resting really well and I'm not in pain, and my brain is like it's going from not like survival mode, but like it's going from thinking about, conserving energy. Like even when you're not running, you're still like, well, I need to keep my legs up. Am I drinking enough water? Like you're looking at the clock, like eating specifically at every, second, point of the day, because you're trying to maximize calories and output your, and like all sorts of different things, to where like, you're always, no matter if you're on like an off day of running, you're still paying attention to what you're doing. Whereas now I have a break and I'm not worried about it, that my brain is just like, thinking about the other things in life that I could do. And it's just different. So like you sort of like are able to like see life beyond just this one focus that you have. And so my running, so I guess back to like pacing, is that like sort of like, you're the pacing will go into even like your off time, because you have to like start paying attention much more so to like the calories you're taking in. I know I went over this, but you got to like also sort of pay attention to like um just like you want to, I don't even know how to put it, but you'll like want to do stuff. This is not like you'll want to like not clean, but like you'll want to do stuff that you, while you're running, are thinking about, that you just don't typically do because you're trying to rest. Like you'll want to like golf, and you'll want to like do normal like everyday activities. And you sort of have to like realize that like if you're really going to be taking a break, that you can't just keep going and just fill in what you're doing with your training with other pointless, other stuff. Like you can't like, start playing like 100 rounds of golf because you can run 100 miles and you don't get tired and you just play round after round after round. Like you can go out there and you need to like really like cut back kind of continuously in all of your activities, just so you can actually heal up. And then, start adding stuff back in. So like even like coming off of the training, you still got to like make sure, because you feel so good and you have so much time, that you want to, that you don't fill all that time. You don't like substitute one thing for another. And the problem about, or not the problem, but like, things people don't understand about this type of running and lifting is that, the endorphins that come out of it, if you're doing it, if you have the mental focus that it's not about like looking good for everybody else, and like you really like enjoy it and it makes you feel good, because that's the endorphins coming out, is that you kind of get addicted to it. And so when you're bored and you want to go run, or you want to like go bike, or you want to like, go golfing, you got to like, you can't just like go until you're tired. You can't just keep breaking yourself down. And then after your break cycle, expect to be fresh and ready to go for whatever it is that you're training next. And so that's where my big, focus is right now, is that even though I have all this time, that I actually feel less prone to like go, like even when I was at my highest mileage, I still like ignored, rest day, and went for, a 50-60 mile ride, like something that is, not too hard. I mean, I can do a few 100 miles a day, but it's still just something that is still strenuous, and I was not resting. And that was why that 1 week was just so difficult. So in one way, it makes more sense to kind of do that while I'm training, because I'm training, whether I'm on a bike or I'm running, it may not have been exactly the focus. So my one day of going for a long ride, I wasn't able to finish my long day of running, but I mean, it both was high, relatively in the ballpark of training. So I didn't feel like bad. Whereas right now is that like I had, I feel like I could go for 100 or 200 mile ride, but I need to back off because I know that my muscles really need a break and really need some time off. And it's not just that, it's being mentally. Like, it's sort of like if you're like running all the time and you kind of get into a daze because you're just like going through the motions, is that that's a lot of times when you're going to get hurt. Or if you're on a bike and you're really not healed, but like you feel good because you're not like in extreme pain, like you typically will go for longer and get hurt, or like, and I mean actually fall off the bike too, not just, like pull a muscle. So I guess where I'm trying to like draw this into is that like the whole like pacing thing goes all the way through and to into your rest time, where you gotta even manage. You gotta manage stuff, and it's not as intense. Like, you're not like, okay, I need to eat like 350 calories by like 2 o'clock, and then by like 3:30 I need to eat another 400 calories, and then like be trying to time your water intake with like when you're gonna go run, and like all these different things that, like, I mean, you don't even have to do while you're training, but if you've ever done it, you know how beneficial it makes you feel. So I guess is that like on the other side of that is that you can't get so sloppy that like you just start eating everything and all things. And like, I've been eating too much and kind of not the best stuff for me, and I can even feel that I gained just like a tiny bit of weight, not much, but a little bit. And so I really have to keep in mind, and I am going to keep in mind, and I keep deciding that I need to make some decisions about going on a trip and taking some time, and what 5K and what 10K I would like to run. Because I was gonna, or a half marathon I was gonna go for to do. But it's like every day that I wake up, I'm just mentally a little bit more clear, and I'm mentally like in a different place. And so like I'm trying to like get back and rest to where I normally typically would function, just fully recovered. And so where I was kind of made the deadline today to make all these decisions, I think I'm actually going to give myself like one actual full week of rest, where I'm still going to be doing activities, but it's just never going to be as vigorous as it was last week. And hopefully by next week, okay, this is also where I was going to go with this. And so like, I know this typically sounds like a rant, but I'm trying to like giving like real world examples. They obviously don't go across the board for everybody, but that's why like I keep trying to like do round robin, like where you understand like the training versus the not training, like going too hard, not too hard. But where I'm at is that my oh man, what was I now? I just talked myself out of even where I was going with it. So oh, okay, yeah. Is it? So my hardest week was 2 weeks ago now. Well, I mean, it's going on 2 weeks tomorrow. Well, wait, 1 week off, but it was relatively still hard. So of my peak, like above my max threshold, it's been 2 weeks. And then still about where my max was, it was, 2 weeks, that week after. So it's been about, and then tomorrow would have been 1 week from when I started my, my green zone, my easy week to get off. And so now I'm just like, now I'm back to 100%, not doing anything. So I guess you could say it's been 2 or 3 weeks. It's the easiest way to say it. But because I still was running and I haven't really just stopped and really recovered, is that you are still not fully recovered. So I don't even know how to explain it. Like even though it's been 3 weeks, but because I still kept going and I didn't just stop right away, that my recovery was also not just straight down, is that it's kind of been easy going. I've just been slowly getting back to recovered, which is why I have been basically just now starting to feel better, even though it was 3 weeks ago that I was going through hell, And so I guess the whole thing that you have to kind of keep in mind is that when you do your detraining, or when you're coming off of your training cycle, is that you got to know that you are going to not recover right away. Especially if you just keep running and you have built in shorter runs after your max runs, then you got to know that you're still, man, I can't even give examples. See, it's just so hard to give examples, is because you feel fine, but there's still indicators that you're not, because you're not in the pain zone anymore, but because you kept on pushing, is that it's sort of okay, this is finally a good, maybe I will remake this one. Okay, so because I think I've been bumbling for about 3 minutes. It's if you go, anybody can experience it. So say go for tomorrow, you've never run before. Go for a run, okay? And then, but go for as far as you possibly can, okay? And then tomorrow, try to go the same distance. And then the next day, try to go the same distance. Trying to keep pushing as far as you can go. And then give yourself a day off, and then go run again. And see if you can run as far as you did, the first time. And that's kind of what the reducing your training does, is that even though you're not doing as much as you did yesterday, is that you have still built up that, the lactic acid, but you've built up sore muscles, is a more general way of saying it, is that you've built up to where you could still have 2 or 3 days off, but because you ran for 6 weeks, is that your total volume is still affecting you. Whereas if it was just one run, then you would have been able to recover in those few days. So as you keep running, is that you would think that you're going down, but you're kind of coasting up and down the entire time, because you're still at your threshold. And each time that you run after that, even though it's not as far and as intense, still pushing you back up into, where it's hard to run, which is also, so there's 20 minutes, is also a good point to make, is that if you got to keep in mind mentally and keep strong mentally, that even after you have gone for these long runs and you're starting to go on to slow runs, that you're going to still be dog tired and still it's still going to be exceptionally hard to get through those runs, because you want to not run and you're still sore. And so why I end with such a short run is because typically those runs are so small that even if I'm really tired, I can push through relatively easy. But my moderately long runs, I was really struggling to get through them. And so you're not going to actually see the results in your shorter runs after your max runs, unless you take a break. And so I guess this whole long story short, where you probably could have come to the conclusion, but the point is not that, it's not that you could draw your own conclusion. It's just that most people will think that it's just such a simple answer. And it really is probably one of the more complicated things is, how to train versus how to rest. And rest is actually how you gain. So obviously if you don't train, you're not going to gain, but if you don't rest, you're not going to gain either. And so where you really gotta get to is you gotta get to the point where you can relax and give yourself a legitimate time to recuperate. And that way, like, you actually see the benefits and not mentally getting down on yourself, and not losing focus either, and then never going back to it. But I'm going to end it right there just because I do feel like it's like kind of going on a rant, but at the same time, like, it's sort of like if I thought it was really important, I wouldn't just like be like, okay, well, what happens after you run is that you get tired, but you can't like stop running. You got to like keep running because I said so. And and then you take a rest later on. Because if you don't understand that, like, the reasons why you're resting, then it's much more difficult for you to rest. And so, like, if you don't, and also, like I'm saying, is that, like, there's a lot of people out there, and maybe I really have, like, kind of outgrown the absolute, like, beginner. Sorry, it's kind of insulting. The beginning of running, because is that a lot of, is that if you are coming off of the mileage that I'm coming off, you've probably gone for long enough that that you need to rest and that you're going to start running again. But a lot of people, if they'll like look at their watch and they'll be like, well, I ran like 12 miles. I got up to 12 miles and now I'm back down to the 3 miles that I started with, but I can't run it as fast as I ran the first time that I ran, 3 miles. And they don't understand that it's because there's more going on in their body than just, I can run and I cannot run. Like there's the chemicals, like your muscles, like all the imbalances that take place, the mental aspect of it, all the different aspects. You're not going to like finish I finished with the exact same distance that I started with, but I guarantee you that I didn't run the last run as fast as I did my first run, even though I went through all that training. And that's the whole aspect, is that you don't want to like mentally be like, well, I'm faster if I just don't run at all, because you aren't going to see those huge gains until 2 or 3 weeks after you have, well, yeah, actually that's fair. About 2 or 3 weeks after you have actually rested, like you have recovered. And so where a lot of people will just be like, well, I feel better, like I'm not like in the pain cave, but it was like yesterday. They don't understand that it takes as much confidence or as much patience and focus to get through the complete recovery process than it does to get through the pain effort. And you're so addicted to the pain and the endorphins that you cannot rest through the boring, kind of the depression. But you're not really depressed, you're just not high. The best way of putting it. So I guess like this is just going way too deep, but because all these different, I watch these YouTube videos and I watch all these different people, is that you can't forego, you gotta like, you can't think that everything is about being picture perfect all the time. And you cannot keep going without stopping, and you cannot not rest. And you can't get depressed when you are resting. Like you can't expect that like all the hype and the excitement that you have of completing your goals and the endorphins and the positive and the the reinforcement of achieving your goals, which goes away when you have to stop to really recover. That like you don't like go into some sort of like actual depression and not be aware and able to I guess I would say pace, but plan on it becoming sort of like a different type of battle. And so I guess like partly also why I'm okay with going over on this video is because really for the next few days, if I get on here, it would just be, and maybe I could just cut this up, is that it would just be this cut up 5 different, for 5 minutes each day, because I'm not going to be running. So there's nothing new to really, to talk about. I mean, it really it's done until, I explain what I'm going to do next. I mean, really what I'm going to be doing is trying not to do anything, do some things, but very lightly. And that's what my next week or 2 weeks is going to be. Now, I will just say that, like, my mother wants me to help her with her, driveway, and, I'm supposed to, I probably get out there on the bike, and I probably will, play some golf. But I just wanted you, and I don't want you to think that I'm just going to lay in bed all week, even though I could. But I want you to just realize is that, like, how important it really is, and how difficult it really is, and kind of how you really got to like be aware and alert of it. Like you really got to you got to be in touch with your own emotions, and you got to because I don't really have too many people in my life. It's like you kind of like have to understand that your world is going to change for your recovery stage, and that's like when you are going into like such an extreme amount of effort, you really got to like plan for the other side of it, that like if you push yourself to a certain degree, that you're gonna have to rest to a certain degree. Whereas like if you like are maintaining, like when I was talking about overtraining, if you're like just right into training, into maintaining or training, is that you're never really getting into that zone where you have to like really recover. Because when you start to get into the overtraining, the only type of training you can do is no training. And anyway, now I'm getting into ranting because this is just like the circle of life type of stuff. But I hope you do take my advice on this. Like, I don't think I'm wrong on this. And unlike me telling you what to go do when you're running and what to expect, is that you're not going to have too much issue not doing anything besides, like I said, maybe falling into the depression trap from it. So I really hope that your next, like, if you're kind of following me and trying to follow what I'm doing on whatever scale, whether you're working up to 5 miles or 2 miles, or you're trying to do a marathon. I mean, there's people that I listen to that are doing just a 5K, building for a 5K, because it's just a matter of scaling up. So if you are actually sort of listening to what I'm doing and following along, is that like I really do hope that you take the recovery phase extremely serious, extremely serious. And I guess on one more note is that when you are beginning and you're going a shorter distance, it's almost more important, and you need to be more serious about your rest than once you've gotten into like the mid-range to the high range. I mean, you really gotta because your muscles are really developing and you are really breaking. I mean, you are breaking your muscles down even more than like a seasoned runner. So if you think, well, I've only done a few miles, I just went from like doing no miles to being able to run a mile. Like, I don't want to stop. Like, I promise you that you need the rest more than a marathon runner. So I'm going to end there because that seriously does really, I guess that just wraps up. That's basically the whole thing. I mean, that's the whole program. I mean, I'm going to check in for my future programs, but really this is it. That's the whole process. I mean, this is just like future talk for the next, week or two. So stay hydrated, stay fed, and I hope you, enjoy this and tune in for the next training saga, which I haven't quite figured out. I still think I'm going to go into biking. So if you will like biking, all right, thanks.